Welcome everybody to the Finance and Performance meeting this morning, our March 2023 meeting. Welcome to everyone on live stream. Can I please ask that we all stand and I'll read the council prayer. Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages that we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen. I've received an apology from Councillor Loudon and I move that be accepted.
I'll second it.
Thank you. No other apologies? Oh, there, no. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item number 3 is public forum, and I've not been notified of any public forum. Item number 4, conflict of interest declarations. Does anyone have any conflicts they'd like to declare now?
Just a noting that we've got the South Makirikiri School Friends of School application, and I'm a parent of a child at that school.
Thank you. There's no financial benefit for yourself. I'm sure you can continue with that. Thank you. So, if throughout the meeting we're discussing matters that a conflict arises, please raise it at that time. Item number 5 is confirmation of order of business. There's no new items to be added and the order is unchanged as per the order paper. Item number 6 is confirmation of minutes of our previous meeting. Can I call for any amendments or matters arising? We'll start on page 6, page 7, page 8, 9, 10, 11, no amendments.
Happy to move.
Have a second, please, for that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So we've got no follow-up items to talk to. Does anyone want to bring anything to the table at this juncture? No, we can move right along. Apologies, my report's only been tabled this morning. Very short report. I hope that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but in short, we're in a strong financial position currently. We currently have our annual plan out for consultation. And I'm just want to encourage, if there is anyone online or anyone in the public realm out there, please engage in this process. We've got some big decisions to be made, significant amounts of money looking to be spent, and these decisions will have a multi-generational impact. So I implore you to engage. Yes, so I just attended, along with some others, workshop back in December, and these 2 pictures stuck with me. They're not the ones that were presented at the time, but just firstly, how important it is to get yourself out of the weeds, or as I remember Councillor Wilson referring to, don't get bogged down, or get yourself out of the bog. And then over the page, how important it is to take that helicopter view. That's all. Any further discussion on that report? So I'll move that it is taken as read. Second, Councillor Morn. All those in favour? Carried. Reports for information. No, beg your pardon. Reports for decision, item number 8, page 13. This is our event sponsorship scheme. I guess it's with some disappointment that we've only received 2 applicants to our scheme currently. So, yeah, I mean, there is an opportunity for our public to apply to this scheme, and we all need to do our bit in spreading that word of that funding that is available. So, now this is my first time doing this. So it is here. Okay, so, close, far away. So first of all, we've got a application from the South Makirikiri Friends of the School for $5,000. I think it's probably just best if we just go around the room and comment on whether that's a worthwhile cause.
Is it a 150 or 125 Jubilee? Because up the top it's got 125, and one of the comments there is 150 year.
Oh, my notes said 150, yeah.
It's 150, sorry.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Oh.
No. Okay. So, Greg, have you had a chance to look at this application?
Yes, very briefly.
Yeah.
Get used to the smarty grants, but no, I think it's a good cause. I've said $5,000. Yeah, support their initiative. Big event for the area, and good support. Could build a profile for our district. People have been in the district, coming back, seeing what we've done. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Councillor Carter.
Ditto to what Greg was saying, Councillor Warren was saying.
Councillor Wilson.
Even though it's not Christmas, I seem to be the Grinch up there with that one, but I did find some difficulty in this application when referencing back to the actual application guidelines and objectives. I found it difficult that this is a community event. However, I have recommended a small degree of support, and I'm happy to leave my recommendation as stands and submitted.
Okay. Councillor Kalkin.
Yeah, I believe this is a worthwhile event. The local school out there has been around for a long time. Obviously, 150 years is a massive milestone. It's something that we should be looking to support. A lot of students go there. A lot of teachers who are local have worked there over that period, and I feel like it's a really worthwhile cause for us to provide. Especially given the size of the cost that they're going to incur and the fact that they are looking to come out of it with a loss. If you look at their sort of projections, that a $5,000 payment from us will go a long way to helping that.
Thank you. Worship them there.
I'm sort of Grinch number 2, it would appear. First thing I'll make is a general comment. This excuse me, this is a fund that comes out of the ratepayer pocket. And as such, I would expect to see a significant effort by the friends of the school or the school to have gone through some fundraising to make good, to to provide an input. I struggled in the application, other than the sale of tickets to a formal function, as to where their fundraising has been. We have a number of these events. The latest one, and I've been invited, and of course I'll go, and if I go, I'll pay my own way. But the last one was at Whangahu School, 150 years there. We didn't fund it. Yes, I did attend. Yes, I did fund it. But in essence, yes, we've got quite a bit of money sitting in events sponsorship. That doesn't mean that we just disperse it because it's there. It does come out of the ratepayer pocket. So that's why I have said we should contribute, but probably not the full amount.
Just for point of clarification, did Wangahu apply to us and we turned them down, or?
They actually, I don't think they actually did apply
Sure.
in the end.
Okay.
Is that correct?
I can follow up on that, but I can't tell you.
I'm reasonably sure. I did, Pahia Turia was one of the chief organisers, and I said to him that the scheme is there. I don't think they took it up.
Okay. Councillor Wong.
Listening to all the comments, I perhaps feel a bit too generous now. I did observe that we only had 2 applications, so I did feel a bit more generous. I take on board the 2 comments about them not being particularly imaginative in fundraising, and I thought they weren't particularly imaginative in promotion. I have nothing to add to their promotion, but local papers, Facebook, seem pretty pedestrian, and I'd like to see perhaps some of these events try something that would sort of be different, that I'd be impressed by. But as I said, I couldn't think of anything they should be doing, but it's just a comment I thought. I think it's having a wider range of communities. They should try something. It'd be nice to have tried something, but otherwise, that's why I recommend the full amount is.
Are you, haven't heard the room, you're welcome to change that amount?
No, I still stand by it because
Yeah.
I do, but I do take on board. This is a new process for me. But
Yeah, sure.
at this stage, I still stand by my recommendation.
So I was supportive of the event. I think it will attract a lot of people into the district. And just that fellowship of and memories of that amazing time that they had, if they're now outside our district. So as per the usual process, the average recommended that what we do is we go around the room and put in our recommended amounts, and that is averaged out. And I assume everyone's happy with their amounts submitted, so that comes out at $4,142. Awesome. Councillor Cochran.
If I may, Madam Chair, just to add a little bit with some of the background knowledge that I have of the work that the Friends of the School do, and potentially something that for potential feedback may be worthwhile providing to them, that they do go to extensive amounts of mahi out in the community to raise funds. That includes lifting a lot of hay bales through the summer. And when I say a lot of hay bales, upward of 10,000 hay bales to raise funds. And all of that money goes back to the kids for things like school camps, events, programs that they run at the school, so that all of that money that they raise tries to go back through the kids. So any funds that we don't actually provide, or any shortfall they have from this event, will likely be coming out of those funds. So I just want to make sure that that is known, that while it may not have been listed, that there are other efforts being made by the Friends of School to raise funds. They do put the work in.
Thank you.
You may wish to pull up the budgets, so we're not referring to just sort of he said, she said, if you want to check. That option is there if you wanted it.
Oh, thank you. I think that those that haven't recommended the full amount have made their comments clear. I'm happy to move on through. Yeah. So next we've got the Gumboots Brass and Wind Ensemble. And we will discuss this around the other way. We'll start this side. Councillor Wong, are you familiar with this group?
I do know the people involved. I see the principal tutor has got the same surname as the applicant, and I wonder if there was any familial connection. It wasn't mentioned, but apart from that, again, avenues of fundraising and promotion, alternative ones. I'd like to see. Perhaps we don't put that on our on the council website to ask them to be innovative in their. We haven't really chased that, but I thought that would be a sort of given in this day and age, that with all the electronic media and things you see on TV, how people do different things to raise support and awareness and money for their cause. They seem just a little bit not proactive, whatever the opposite to proactive is. Passive. Otherwise, $1,000 I thought was okay. And I'll also have seen perhaps a bigger breakdown of their biggest expense, which was the catering. It was just an amount lumped there, with no breakdown of how many people. I suppose there's no people, but for what meals and what they were suggesting. But if they had people from Woven, New Zealand, I imagine it was not cheap to feed them. How many people were there? 100, was it? 100. Yeah, so $14 a head is probably not really a lot. But otherwise, I supported them. Yeah.
Your Worship the Mayor.
Full support, great initiative, ticks all the boxes for me.
Councillor Kalkin?
Yeah, I agree. I think the support from us for the full amount they're asking for is valid, and I see that they're actually looking to make this a permanent, ongoing event. So I think we should be involved in it at this point to help support that.
Councillor Wilson.
I agree with Councillor Carter. I do support it. I think it meets the criteria. And I also believe and agree that it is a start-up to something that may be ongoing. So therefore, I've given it full support. Apologies, Councillor Kilman.
Councillor Carter.
You're lucky you're not with it.
I was actually prepared to give more if they were asking for more, even to jump what they've asked for. Full support for this sort of organisation to do what they are for the community in the district.
And Councillor Moore.
No further comments. Support it.
I also was supportive of the application, particularly because they will be centre point at the Spring Fling. Can I just ask staff, would this be eligible for a creative community application?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so from the point of view that those applications are not out of the ratepayer's pocket, we would encourage them to take that as perhaps an opportunity in the future to apply there. Can we pass that feedback on to them, please? So therefore, $1,000 is awarded, is applied for. And beg your pardon.
Just before we move off
thank you.
this item, I just wanted to advise a couple of things. I know Joe has reached out to some of the groups promoting this fund, and some of the reluctance this time round is just with COVID and then this bad weather we've been having. People have made a loss with some events they've had to cancel. So the weather this time around kind of did put some people off from applying. That was the feedback. The other thing is that we are reviewing the criteria of this event sponsorship, and we've agreed we'll have a workshop with councillors in May. So just an update that we will be looking at the criteria moving forward.
We'll look forward to that. Thank you. Yes. So do I ask
Do
Councillor
we need to
Carter?
move those individually, move and second individually?
Just point of clarification,
Yes,
just because that spreadsheet comes out with the average,
yes.
is that the figure that we have to abide by, or can we?
So everyone at this table gets the opportunity to change their recommendation?
Oh, no, just, the average is the amount we approve.
Yes.
Can't sort of, unless you did an
You can
amendment.
change yours individually?
No,
Yeah.
just clarification.
Yeah.
We can't move a motion to say make it 5,000 rather than 4,142.
No, because that would be disregarding someone else at the table's views. Yeah.
Wouldn't want that.
No.
Madam Chair, quite often in the past, there has been, the chair has put up a rounding exercise.
Okay.
You know, when it has come down to odd cents or dollars, and the chair has said, well, look, everybody's in this ballpark, and the chair has suggested would people accept a rounding. You'd still have to go back to the table, but there has been history of that.
Okay, that's a clarification, Councillor Moore. Yeah. Awesome, thank you. With that, yeah, so I would therefore, recommendation 1, to receive that report. Do we have a mover? Councillor Wilson, seconded Councillor Carter. Recommendation 2. Beg your pardon. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Recommendation 2, that the Finance Performance Committee approve the sponsorship of events listed below and disperse the event sponsorship scheme as outlined to successful applicants. South Makerikeri Friends of the School, the average came out at 4,142. Let's round that to 4,200. And the Gumboots Brass and Wind Ensemble, $1,000. Would you like to move that?
I have a question to the recommendation,
Yes.
and it's sort of to expand on what Councillor Morn just touched on, is while the average in that spreadsheet that we've just gone through for the Friends of the School was 4,142, if I've got that number correct. I note that the majority of people who are part of this committee put down $5,000 as the recommendation. And if we were to recommend that amount was 5,000 and 1,000 for the Brass and Wind Ensemble, would that be an appropriate motion to move? If it had a seconder and then be voted on?
That is not how we've conducted this sponsorship scheme in the past. I believe that we all have a chance to put that amount on the table and have the chance to change that once everyone's thoughts have been tabled. I feel we should go with the average.
In our assessments, we can put more in if we want, can't we? Or do you have to put in the amount that they've requested? If you think it's a good cause and you think they need. We only.
I would have to check with, I don't believe that is possible. Can anyone from staff clarify that?
We'll follow up and get back to you through, because
Maybe in our workshop we can
Yeah, thank you.
do a bit of coaching on how these things work. Thank you.
So is everyone in the room happy that we take the average? I'd just like to put that to the floor. So you've got, my recommendation is that we take the average of, the rounded average of the amounts tabled. Do we have, I would like to move that. Do we have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you, councillor Wilson. Put it to the floor. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Would those that were against that recommendation would they like their name put to it?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
that's up to the responsibility of the people to declare. Now, I wouldn't like to see a routine thing where the chair is obliged to ask.
Thank you, okay. Councillor Kalkin?
I'd just like to clarify my position on this one now that we have passed that recommendation, is that my recommendation isn't to stand against those parties receiving those funds. It's more that I would like to, at some point, potentially in the workshop, have a conversation around taking an average versus the majority view. Because if you start to take averages in certain areas, you can open yourself up to, in my opinion, some challenges when a majority has one view, and if one or two people have a slightly different view, that completely brings down that average.
I think that we should have that discussion at the future workshop, if that can be tabled. Much appreciated. Thank you for bringing it to the table. Okay, so that's all around that. Page 14. An update on the adoption of the 21-22 annual report. Would you like to speak to that, Mr. Toombs?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So you would have seen from this afternoon's council agenda that we're getting very, very close to having a final annual report that we can sign off with the auditors this afternoon. Just for everyone's benefit, I'll just remind you all of the contents of the annual report, because there are some areas that we might want to discuss. There's 5 main areas. Section 1 is just an introduction section, which is standard corporate information. Section 2 is what we call the statement of service performance, which is a lot of statistics around response times and stuff. Section 3 is all the financial information. There's some graphs at the back of it, and then there's an audit report that goes with all of that. Each year's annual report has to include figures for that financial year and also the previous financial year, which is known as the comparatives. The previous annual report, we received a qualification on certain aspects of our statement of service performance. Now, even though the year subject to this year's annual report is clean, because the comparatives have been restated, that qualification will follow in the audit report. So we will get another qualified audit report, not based on the 21-22 results, but because the comparatives were subject to that qualification. The draft audit report does clearly state that the issue has been resolved in 21-22, but it will be a qualified audit report based on the comparatives. The draft annual report that was sent out with the council agenda, there's been a few changes as we work through the process with the auditors. The main change is on the key financial statements, their profit and loss accounts and balance sheet. Just they record an extra 240k worth of income that wasn't included on the draft, so no real change. But there are some other realignments of numbers. Most
most commonly in the statement 2 in the FISs. Nothing really changing the substance of the annual report. And we're currently working with the auditors just to finalise the graphs at the back of the section 3. So when you come to see the annual report this afternoon, or the final version, it will be slightly different to the version of the council agenda, which is standard as you work through the audit process with the auditors.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Holmes, and please pass on our thanks to your staff for bringing that to the table. I'd like to move that the report be received. Councillor Carter. Seconder, please. Councillor Wilson. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 8.3 is a graphical presentation of the bad debt summaries. Mr. Toombs, are you going to talk to that again?
I will certainly shall, thank you. So this is a report that comes from our external firm of debt collectors. This committee has requested this summary be brought every 6 months. So here it is, it's the time for the February 23 figures to be presented. Just to remind you all that this isn't our total debtors, these are just the rates debtors that we've forwarded onto our debt collection. So they're behind with their payments, they've not responded to requests for payment plans, so we've don't have the resources in-house, so we outsource, as many councils do, to an external firm to progress these matters.
Any questions from the floor? Councillor Carter. Beg your pardon.
That's going to stick, isn't it?
You've got your mind around the wrong way.
Thank you. It's a very very well laid out, actually easy to read. I'm interested in the trend. If you could just talk to the trend 6 months on 6 months for us, and I'd be interested to know, are we seeing an increase or a decrease in our, not just the number of bad debts, but also the financial implications of those as well?
Certainly. That question's actually been asked in a different forum, so I can rattle off some numbers if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So this, to take it up a level, this is just the debtors that we've referred on to the external debt collection agency. Taking it up a level, total council rates debtors over the last 4 years have decreased year on year from roughly 1.7 to 1.6 to 1.3 to 1.2 million. So each year we are bringing that rates debtors figure down. Interestingly, we have a similar amount of rates paid in advance, which some people might be surprised to hear. So of the figures that we send off to the debt collection agency to be collected, let's see here, there's 248 summary of all files that they've recorded. That number is very high compared to what it has been. Typically the last 3 or 4 periods, that's been around the 150 mark. But the summary of active files, the next bolded figure on the top of that page, is more or less in line with the previous figures. So what that indicates is that we're now passing on a lot of smaller accounts. We focused on the big items, and as we're working through, we're getting to the smaller accounts now, so we're sending them off.
And subsequently, do we have a view on, or are there any projections on what that's going to look like for the 12 months going forward, just based on sort of the environment we're going into?
If, as I say, some people out there are struggling, obviously, with economic factors. I can't comment on their personal situations now.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, and thank you very much for this report. There's several comments I'd like to make. First of all, it is fantastic to see the effort that's going into this space. So, for a long time, council had never been prepared to go down the path of ultimately putting a property up for sale. Literally, there were years and years and years where that never happened. And that's been a characteristic of local government. So there's been a number of properties that have been told that they will go onto the market, and then they have resolved their debt position. So fantastic. Second comment is that it's great to be focusing on the debt that is being transferred for positive action. Because in the past, we've had reports that give the debt at the moment of time that the council meeting is at. And so what happens then, you get all sorts of distortions. So for instance, if there was a council meeting 5 days after the date of which rates were meant to be paid by, there are always quite a large number of people who think, they often use a swear word, ring up and say, oh God, I forgot, I've been away on holiday, etc. And immediately pay their rates. But it distorts it, because if it had been 3 months later or 2 months later, all of those forgetting things would have been cleared up. I'd also like to congratulate Dave and the staff. There needs to be some delegation in these practices to be able to give the staff the use of local knowledge. So there are often people that have paid their rates year by year by year by year, and they may have been overseas and they've missed it by 10 days or something like that. They will often get a phone call or something like that, I understand, to say, hey, have you forgotten something? And it's immediately cleared up, and they're often without penalty because of that. I think that's a great public exercise. So my congratulations to you, Cheryl and staff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Carter?
The cost of using this outsourcing company to chase up the debt, is that transferred onto the recipients rather than the cost of the council?
I believe, I'd prefer to double check that before I respond. I believe that they take a percentage of what they recoup on our behalf, but I'll take it on notice and double check.
So there is a cost to the council in that respect?
I'd expect there to be, but I will double check, yeah. Because if we don't do it this way, we've got to employ someone to do it. So either way, you're paying.
Yeah, no, I was wondering whether the person who you're collecting off pays the penalty.
I'll check.
Your worship.
I have asked that question previously, and the answer is that yes, it gets added to the bill.
Oh, it does. Cool, thank you.
Councillor Moore?
I know you probably can't get into individual cases, but is there a core group of people or peoples that are consistently not paying rates, like year on year on year? And those are the ones, I guess, you're taking action against anyway.
Basically, someone in that situation would be on this dashboard and being addressed.
Yeah, repeat offenders.
No more questions? I'm sorry. Your worship, the Mayor?
That's close enough. So, Toombs, there are a number of properties that are unable to access their rates, unable to access their property. Landlocked land is the classic example. So I believe that sometimes those rates arrears are included in our rates databases as not paying, but they then subsequently go through a process of rates remission. Is my understanding correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. So can someone please move that report be received? Councillor Carkin. Seconded by Councillor Carter. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Reports for information. Page 17. Thank you, Mr. Toombs.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you will be familiar with the content and style of this report. It comes out each month, and I think I would just like to point out page 18 of the agenda. Refer to this page most months. The middle column there, year-to-date variance, based on the complexity of our organisation and the environment within which we operate, that's a very pleasing year-to-date budget situation. There's obviously a lot of things underneath that, different ins and outs and unders and overs, but collectively that's a very pleasing snapshot as at the end of February for the operating budgets.
Any questions for Mr. Jones? Then I'd like to, I'll move that this financial snapshot February 2023 report be received. Second
Yeah,
question.
I'm happy to have it received. And Chair, there's just a couple of things that I was going to raise.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Would you like to raise them?
Yeah, so for instance, on page 17, I think it is, in terms of the funding of unbudgeted expenditure at 5.1, where it says offsets against underspends in other project budgets, and this refers to emergency capital works, etc. I agree that absolutely it has to be funded from somewhere, and we should know where it is being funded from. And the reason I raise that, for instance, if you just say it could be offset by another budget, and you have a budget to develop a new centre, for instance, in Taihape, that hasn't been fully spent, it wouldn't be fair and reasonable that somebody just says, well, there's an unspent budget, we'll take it from there. And my preference would be, for instance, if there's a roading shortfall or over expenditure, that it comes out of that roading budget, or at the very least we know what budget it has been removed from.
Would you like to comment?
Yeah, the statement in section 5.1 is more of a general conceptual statement as opposed to a targeted budget that will be transferred to this particular initiative. So our capital programme will obviously, as all capital programmes do, end up with a series of unders and overs. And all this was referring to was, as a result of that, there may be, to the extent to which other budgets won't be able for this, then it will be debt funded. But there's no specific projects we're looking at to transfer budgets.
Yeah. Clarification, all I'd be looking for is an explanation as to where it has been funded from, which budgets.
I think that might end up as the wash up of when we finish this financial year, we'll see what capital budgets haven't been spent and which ones will be carried forward and which ones can be transferred to this.
Yes.
I would just say that the key word in that sentence is underspend, not yet spent. Does that make sense? I support, His Worship's made that very clear in the past to me, and I support the logic that His Worship's presented to this meeting, and my staff are the same. So if there is a not yet to be spent, we would absolutely bring that to council.
Okay, that's fine. Second one that I was going to raise in these snapshots, the Community Wellbeing Activity Performance Report. The Community Wellbeing Performance Report and page 22. So just a note, and it is an issue that I'm going to raise in Wellington tomorrow in terms of the Mahi Tahi program, the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. So there's been, because some of the councils haven't picked up some of the governmental money that's available, Mayor's Task Force for Jobs has said, we'll give you another $200,000 on top of all of this. But they have in this instance gone straight to the contractor and said, could you use extra money? And I absolutely love extra money coming into our district, no doubt about that. But it's just a little bit of a process thing. in my view, that should be made to the council because the contractor is acting for us. It shouldn't be determinant on the budget that he receives. It's a very minor point. Absolutely no way should be interpreted as being critical of the service we provide in employment. We are literally leading the pack. And as a result, we get offered these things. But it's just a procedural one, and also flagging that there'll be another 200,000 that's not in this report that will need to be filed.
Oh,
That's my understanding anyway.
thank you. We like hearing that sort of positive news. So I've moved receipt of this report, seconded by the Mayor. All those in favour? Against, carried. 9.2. The Treasury and Debt Report for February 2023. Mr. Toombs, would you like to comment?
Thank you very much. Committee members might see there's a slight change to the format of this report. Previously, it's been based on year-to-date figures, but we've identified that there's quite a few timing differences that can be slightly distorting, so it's more useful to have full year forecast figures in there just so we can see where we expect to be at the end of June. So you can see that as per previous reports, all of our parameters based on current debt are fairly comfortable and forecast debt in the near future. And we all know that that's got a potential to be changed significantly in 15 months' time. But it's just for peace of mind that our current debt levels and short-term predicted debt levels are quite comfortable.
Any questions? Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, comment if I may, through you, Chair. Whilst this is a document and being clearly in the public arena, which it should be, it does look very rosy. But what sits behind that is the fact that we have significant underspend in a lot of areas, and with underspend basically means that a lot of our projects are behind or we haven't been able to complete, and when we do get to complete, they will come at an additional cost, undoubtedly. So whilst it's a pleasing picture from a financial point of view to look at, there is another story that sits in behind it, which might not be quite so rosy if we actually really consider it in the whole of our capital expenditure program, along with our capital budgets at the same time. Just making that note.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other queries? Councillor Moore?
2.8 under liquidity ratios. Debt, assume a further 5 million is taken out May, June.
What does the $5 million extra debt relate to?
But basically, it's just a prediction that I think it would be remiss to say that we're not going to take any debt out in the next 3 or 4 months. So for these purposes, I've put a notional figure of 5 in there. Our capital program could pick up pace.
Yeah.
So that's just to put a figure in there to recognise that the current debt levels, it would be wrong to assume that would be the debt levels as at 30th of June. So I put in 5, could be 7, could be 3, could be nothing. It's a nominal notional figure to reflect that it'd be remiss to assume debt won't change between here and June.
Oh, yeah, but I thought, sorry, can I? I thought the point of this report was a snapshot as of the 28th, or, as of today, which if we, it really isn't if you put a notional figure in anything.
I could do it as today and the figures would look even rosier, but I think it's more relevant to look to see where we might be at the end of June.
Yes.
We could take guidance from the committee if you would like a position such as an absolute factual one. I'll happy to take your guidance on that.
I think it would, sorry.
Yes.
I think it would be better to have a snapshot as of each meeting, but also, and then add in that, make us aware that there could be $5 million worth of debt popping up, and then if that's, 2 scenarios, I guess. But I don't know whether that's
If I'm, I totally agree with you, apart from the fact that if you look at the bolded figures there, we're so far under the ratios.
Yeah.
That the sensitivity, I could make that 5 million, 20 million, and we'd still be comfortable underneath
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
I can make it
So
zero.
the trend is we're comfortable. Yeah, but I take on Mr. Councillor Wilson's comments. We've got a fair bit of debt coming our way.
Councillor Wilson.
I would tend to agree with Mr. Toombs on this one. It would be unrealistic to assume that we're, council as an organisation and operation will have order numbers outstanding. It'll have invoices coming and going. They will be fluid. They will be quick. They will be moving. A moment in time that we present to the meeting right now could be $1 million out tomorrow. So, I think it's probably fair and reasonable to assume what we've got on the books with regards to our capital spend and projected financials in and out as Mr. Toombs' suggestion is a nominal amount of money at $5 million as an assessment of where we could be throughout the conclusion of our final year is fair and reasonable to do. And I would tend to agree with that assessment.
And just further to that, I take on the councillor's point, but if you think about this report in a July, August, September timeframe, there will be practically zero year-to-date interest. So all the interest-based ratios are fairly meaningless. Got to look at the full year, what we think the full year impact will be.
Okay, back to my original question.
Yes.
The $5 million put in there isn't.
It's not based on any spreadsheet
no,
analysis, no.
Thank
Bear
you.
in mind, March is finished now. I've got 10 million in the bank. So
Councillor Wong.
Can I ask Mr. Toombs through the chair? In 15 minutes' time, I take it the figures will be greatly affected by the assets we are looking at spending on. What do you project the figures to be, just very roughly? Because we need to keep that in mind when we do our decisions on the on those big things. We've done it without thinking of the debt ratios. So, at a guess, what would you project them to be?
can I respectfully ask, I'll cover that in the next agenda item? Yeah, which is actually based on future debt levels, the next one, yeah.
Your Worship.
Yeah, our position of debt is relative to the CapEx program that has been completed. So in setting our annual plan, we would hope that there's minimal change to the CapEx program from when it was put in place, finalised for this annual plan. If there is significant unspent money that was destined to be spent, of course we're waiting for it. That's the crucial one to understand. But I absolutely agree with Mr. Toombs. We're going to have a very difficult period next year where we start to form our long-term plan, and effectively we're going to have to do two of them, one with and one without the three waters. We have received in the past significant information around our possible position, but I'll leave it to the next item on the agenda.
Okay. So I am happy to recommend that the report Treasury and Debt, February 2023, be received, noting the justification in section 2.2, the council having a current account bank balance higher than that recommended in the council's treasury management policy. Is there a seconder? Councillor Wong? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 9.3, future financial impacts. Mr. Toombs, we're all waiting for this.
Okay. This report is it's a standing item on the agenda now. Each month we just advise of any developments we become aware of regarding future debt implications. If you recall, the prior month's version of this had a lot of numbers, analysis and different scenarios and what debt levels may or may not be. Since the last Finance Performance Committee meeting, we have met with representatives of Entity B and agreed that the starting point for working out our ultimate Three Waters related debt will be based on the annual report that we're finalising today, the financial information statements for the Three Waters. They currently show a combined debt of around 24 million. And then the entity B representatives have said that's an audited statement. We'll use that as a starting point to work out what the June 24 debt will be. So we're going to last June's FIS debt for the Three Waters, and we'll just be monitoring that through this financial year or next financial year to work out what the June 2024 debt will be. Well, one thing that did become clear when we were talking to the DIA was that the plan is that each council will be receiving 20 million of their debt paid then, and the rest will be paid over a period of time. For us, that 20 million will probably be, say, somewhere between 50 and 70% of our debt. Other councils, that will be incredibly small percentage of their debt. So that's not really an issue for us. So yeah, we just continue to work with DIA. We're on the same page regarding how debt will be calculated, which is a big plus. So really, yeah, this is just this paper is just advising on the developments there.
Questions, Councillor Carkin?
I have a couple, if that's okay, Mr. Toombs. Firstly, the question around level of confidence surrounding the residual debt. So June 24, between June 24 and June 22, we're going to be doing a lot of capital works on water-related assets. What's our level of confidence that the debt that we incur relating to that work is going to be captured in full as a part of that process? So they've confirmed your debt levels as part of your audited report in 22, and then we're going to do 2 years worth of works. What's our level of confidence that they're going to capture all of that debt and make a payment for those assets?
The principle is, if it's recorded in our annual report as a Three Waters related debt in our FISs, then it will be recognised as debt, subject to any weird circumstances. And I've no reason to believe that any Three Waters related expenditure won't end up on our Three Waters FISs.
I could add to that. When we met with the DIA, what they said is the bit that you're referring to, so the 22 to 24 debt that we have, they firstly, it is pre-approved if it is in your LTP. If it's not in your LTP, then they have, just prior to Christmas, they proposed a methodology for us to have any works that's identified, and you may recall this, to be approved by the Chief Executive DIA. Now, they had notionally put that in their request for feedback, and there's not been a confirmed policy put out since then, that anything greater than $10 million would be deemed significant. Anything less than that would be insignificant. That being said, if there are, through this annual plan process, you are to make a decision on Three Waters debt. There was a couple of minor points there, you may recall, Tai Happy and other ones. Should you resolve that is included as debt, I will write nonetheless to DIA and say this was not an LTP position, but it is something that we wish to have in our annual plan. Notionally, that was provided to DIA as part of the workshop we had with them, and that seemed a reasonable approach. That's not a confirmation 100%, but given it's both insignificant and the work that we have proposed to you for your consideration is maintenance to prevent further issue, then they seemed that seemed reasonable. So that would be my action should it be resolved by council.
And so furthermore to that, then I note the commentary around that they will cover any associated interest costs with any residual debt that's left over, have they provided any guidance as to at what interest rate that they will be covering that at?
They verbalised to say it will be cost neutral to us.
Your Worship?
I've got 2 or 3 comments to make around this area. The first is a question to the Chief Executive. We sat in what DIA regarded as a full and final position to be agreed. What stops us taking that position to be a tabled document to council? If they regard it as full and final, and we have virtually agreed to a final position, subject to coming back to council, when will that come back to council for sign off?
Do you know the answer to that?
I could maybe ask Art responds, maybe not to the direct question, but to give us some perspective. The DIA statement wasn't that we're negotiating a position, they were accepting our position. Our position is our audited annual report, and they're saying, yep, we're happy with that.
Correct, but during the meeting, what I said was, we don't have an authority. That authority needs to come back to council for sign off. And they accepted that, and they put in the proviso, subject to coming back to council for sign off, which was a concession that they made. The question is, when is that likely to happen?
So the document that has been provided by DIA was effectively minutes of the meeting. And what we don't, so we have a position that the DIA have agreed to the position that we have, as Dave said, that we have stated in terms of debt. What remains that, and I'm happy to bring that not as a decision document, but as an information document, because it's simply minutes of a meeting only. But there is that discussion about what about the debt that's between that point and 1 July or 30 June 2024, and that will absolutely be consolidated into a decision document for council.
I think that in terms of transparency, we need to make sure there's a process where that comes before council.
Well, absolutely, yes.
For both advice and decision making subsequent to that. I would say that the meeting was probably a wee bit stressful at the start in terms of the ability to sign off, but it was a convivial meeting, got to that stage. Certainly DIA were prepared to make a number of concessions throughout the meeting, and I think the council ended up in a fairly favourable position, to be fair. But going back to call you Councillor Calkin's point about risk. There are essentially 2 bodies of risk within this, and because you're referring to future work that is being done now and the chance of being reimbursed for that work. So I totally agree with the Chief Executive and Mr. Toombs's appreciation of that being carried forward, that we will be paid, and there are processes in place outside of the annual plan for us to apply, and they have made concessions. However, the biggest single risk outweighs all of that, and that the reforms don't proceed. So there are councils that are doing a lot of work on the presumption that the reforms will proceed and the debt gets passed over. And they're strategically planned for that. But for instance, if the government of the day and Labor at the moment still haven't released their revised version of Three Waters, we presume that the entities will still be established as they are in fact in law. But for instance, it's possible something like stormwater could be dropped out of it. Or there's a change of government and you've incurred all this contractual capex costs and the government of the day says, well, sorry, we're not now forming the entity. So that's the enormous risk that sits out there, which is magnitude 100 times greater than the risk around. Yeah, but that's my assessment. The Chief Executive may wish to comment. Nailed it.
Yes.
Essentially.
Councillor Wilson.
Just again to Councillor Kelka, I attended that meeting and I believe you did as well, Chair. And I agree with the description of how the meeting went from the Chief Executive, Mr. Toombs, and also I agree with the Mayor that the Mayor did make it very clear that he wanted a decision with regards to debt level and the acceptance of such to be a council decision. And the DIA, I also agree, was accepting of that position. However, they were accepting of the position that it wasn't going to change, but they agreed that they were happy to see it presented as a council document. One of the other things that, whilst you mention it, Your Worship, about what other councils may be doing with the level of capital expenditure, our capital expenditure, which 2 or 3 years ago we made conscious decisions to put in place with regards to the Martin Water Strategy and particularly the Bulls to Martin to Bulls pipeline, that work is required. Regardless of whatever happens with Three Waters, as a council we're required to do that work. And the decision to do it was a strategic one in the fact that if we didn't start, it wasn't going to be picked up by whatever the entities may be, and whether it gets picked up by them or not, the work still needs to be done. And so those were conscious decisions that we did make. So just to give you some sort of assurance, Councillor Kelkin, myself and Councillor Dalgety as the Chair of Finance were at that meeting, and there was, I certainly was comfortable at the level of engagement with the DIA, and particularly around our future positions as to where we might be as a council.
I agree. Do you want further comments?
Thank you. Absolutely concur. We've made very good strategic decisions, and they've been very honest decisions. And the way I say honest is we have put it in a heavy loading into our first years of our long-term plan and signalled to the community that this is a priority, it has to happen. And that's also a benefit because having started that work, the entity will pick it up. It virtually has to. However, what I'm illustrating is that there are some councils that decided to put this heavy capex loading into years 3, 4, 5 of their LTP with the expectation that it will be funded by someone else. Leave it there.
Okay. Do I have a mover for that recommendation, please?
Move.
Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Carter. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 9.4, QV reports. Mr. Toombs, have you got any comments you'd like to make?
No, just to remind committee members that this is a standing report that we present each month, just giving some basic data about what's happening in and around the district.
Any questions? Thank you, Councillor Carkin. Seconder, please. Councillor Carter. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Page 35, item 9.5, public feedback and performance report for March 2023. Mrs. Gordon.
Thank you. You get a break from Mr. Toombs.
That's why Anna's come back in.
Couldn't take it anymore.
Right, just a couple of highlights from this report. You'll notice that we've now included the complaints dashboard. This, while it doesn't say it in the blurb, it's actually right from the 1st of July last year through to the end of February this year. So it's not the amount of complaints we received per month. And we'll continue to update this each month, so you can see what feedback we're getting through that process. Sian's implemented a new dashboard approach, so I felt it might be useful to put in this paper as well. And just reminding you that there is a complaints and issue resolution policy, so this follows that process as well. Happy to take any questions if they're relatively simple. Thank you.
Anyone got any questions? Councillor Wilson?
Comment, very happy to see it in there. We'd just like to make all staff and everybody aware really that a complaint is nothing more than an opportunity. So if we have that as a focus, then we'll deliver better outcomes.
Thank you for that. There's a recommendation on the table. Do we have a mover, please?
Could I just have one more?
Oh, yes, yes.
Please, Mrs. Gordon. On page 45, the first complaint is of the street lighting. It doesn't specify which area. I'm just curious as to was there any more information? Is that all we need?
Oh, I'd have to go back and have a look at the report. They do select a location, so I would say it's been selected but not included in this snapshot.
So I have heard some comment around Taiheke about street lights.
Right.
I'll refer them to request for service. Yes.
Right, that's right.
Thank you.
Councillor Calkin?
Actually, just a question on this. The Korero Mai survey and feedback, does that trigger a request for service off the back of it if there is something? It does. Fantastic.
We'll have another go. I'll move that the recommendation is read there be put to the floor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Wong. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So, now there's we're getting to, oh, excuse me.
Sorry, that was
Well,
my-
leave it, we'll get it.
Yeah, well, yeah, don't worry about it.
Move into public excluded. What as chair, do I have to make comment about here, please?
Nothing. If you
Happy
just
to
put
move the recommendation, Chair.
Yeah, just put the recommendation to move into excluded comments.
I'd just like to, oh, I can't.
No, you just
Say-
Councillor
Oh,
Wilson's moved it. So.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Wilson. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Carter?
Which one?
All those in favour? Against? Carried.